In this last chapter, we'll start the configuring and managing of Windows Server 2016. Like I said, roles and features are the basic functionalities for Windows Server. You have to add roles and features in order to take advantage of what Server can offer. Most of them can be added and updated through both the GUI and Server Core. Through the GUI, it is in Server Manager. That's where you add roles and features, update, manage all that kind of stuff. Here's kind of the GUI for you begin, and you could skip this. You could either do role-based or remote desktop installation. You select what server from a pool when installing these roles and features. This could also be installing on a virtual hard disk, a VHD file. Now, where are we installing this new role? Then all the roles available will be listed. You check the box of, do I want to install all of file and storage services, or do I specifically want to install one thing? With those that don't have a submenu, it'll be just that whole service. The features window works just the same. So if in this case we're installing remote access, then there will be a couple of services that go with that. So for installing remote access, what do we want? A web application proxy, routing, VPN, or all three, or one of them, two of them. You can select that there. Then you get a nice overview of what we're going to install. We could also have Windows Server restart automatically if that is necessary. To remove, it's pretty much the same thing, same wizard, just in backwards function of choosing what role, unchecking it, and then going through the process to remove. In PowerShell, you can do the same thing. You can use PowerShell on remote systems in order to install a role. You can also work with offline images like VHD files. They can be used to install or uninstall features. The desired state configuration, kind of like a template. We can push a DSC into a server, or we could pull one that we're gonna send and make those changes and make basically like a template and say, all right, if these servers need to have these roles set up this way, we can do that in one shot. DSC script is created the same way with PowerShell in the ISC. So when you open that, you'll create a management object file, or MOF. The local configuration manager will handle either sending or receiving these configurations. Servers can be managed remotely using things like the MMC if you are on the network, or remoting in from the outside. You can add servers into Server Manager to do it all from that one interface. Like I said, it's backwards compatible. So you could do all the way up to Server 2003. You would just add them in, and then you can manage them from Server Manager. Within that, you can handle things like making groups. So you could split things up by like departments or geographic locations or server type. WinRM came about in 2016 to help you manage your servers remotely. You just have to enable remote management and enable WinRM. You go to your local server, you'll find it on the left-hand side. If you're going to use MMC to manage a remote server, then you need to open up a couple things in the Windows firewall. So you need to enable these rules. And that's where they are. You need to allow them in order to get the MMC to connect to another server. If you want to do this through the command line, you can do that right here, or use a PowerShell as well. Server core doesn't have COM+, and firewall rules for different MMC snap-ins, you might have to do them separately and set firewall rule groups in server core. With Server 2016 and above, we can use the Windows image deployment. This role facilitates installing Windows across the network. You can use a pre-boot execution environment. That would be where a VM who goes on the network will find we'll get an IP address, and we'll find out, oh, I need to get my image from this location. And then it'll go there, boot that image, and install it. Of course, you'll need to have a Windows image as a WIM. Windows PE can be used to jumpstart a Windows installation. You could do multicasting to install to multiple machines at once. You could do network boot or a bootstrap program. WDS requires at least Server 2016 and all of these items. Once again, you could either use the server manager or use PowerShell to install this role and feature. As with any role, you have to do some configurations. You can integrate this with Active Directory or do this as a standalone system. Of course, Active Directory is the default and is recommended. You can set this as unattended so that it does it all on its own. Here's the wizard. That'll say, okay, if we're going to do this, you know, what services we need running. Do we want to integrate this with Active Directory or run it on our own? Then we'll decide where the boot and install images are going to be located, the Pixie boot files, and any management tools. If this server is not the DHCP server, then you'll need to configure your DHCP server properly. Otherwise, you could just do it all in one. There's the Pixie server options. Once it's installed and configured, now we can work with images. So with these images, we can run them across the network, and we can do multiple installs at the same time, making our life easier. You'll need a boot image in order to have these machines boot at once. So for example, if we want to take care of a lab, we don't want to really touch every single system, but we could use WDS to deploy to all. And of course, you need a boot.wim to start the boot process. We'll need a capture image. So we install Windows on a prototype or on our golden system. We do all the configurations we want, and then we can use the capture image to create the file that we need that we'll use to deploy out to everywhere else. You can use the system preparation tool to help you out with that. Once it's all ready, you can turn it into install.wim. That's what will be used to install into all the systems that will be receiving this image. Of course, you can use a stock Windows install, but ideally you want to pre-configure everything so that when it does get rolled out, everything's installed with it. You can update these images. So it's not a set once and done. You could have your main image and then later update as you get more updates or as you install new applications, make configuration changes. You can update it and then send it out. You can enable and disable features within it. Of course, you have to take it offline and then make the changes you need. Again, because you can install and uninstall features and roles into VHD files, it is possible to do that with this. Of course, you can do all this with PowerShell. And next we have our services, our background processes that help us do things like connect to the network, print, DNS resolvement, all that kind of stuff. It is just the same as with Windows Desktop. You can just get to it from a different place in the server manager, but you can also do services.msc and you'll land at the same thing you've seen before. So just like Windows Desktop, you can get to this and make those changes you need to a service like DNS. Just the same. And in case the service fails, what will it do next? Any dependencies? This is all the same as you would see in Windows Server. And of course, you can manage your services through PowerShell. Not very much different because again, these Windows Server and Windows Desktop share the same operating system core. So there's going to be a lot of overlap between the two, which in a way is great because it helps you become more familiar with the Windows operating system in general, and you're not really learning a whole nother system from scratch. Like if we were talking about Windows and suddenly we switched over to BSD, it's not that different.